The blizzard did not announce itself politely, it arrived like a living thing, howling across the empty highway and swallowing the world in white. Snow slammed sideways into the windshield of the patrol truck, piling faster than the wipers could clear, and the cold pressed in with a cruelty that felt personal. Somewhere beyond the reach of the headlights, life was fighting to stay alive, and one small decision made in the middle of that frozen chaos would change everything. When the officer reached for the truck door handle and pulled it open, he had no idea that the simple act of letting warmth escape into the storm would soon melt hearts far beyond that lonely road. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the idea that even one small choice can save a life, take a moment right now to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, comment your thoughts, and subscribe to the channel. Stories like this exist because compassion still does. The officer had been on duty for nearly 12 hours, the kind of shift that seeps into the bones. His uniform was stiff with cold, his gloves damp from clearing snow off stalled vehicles, and his eyes burned from the constant focus required to keep the truck steady on black ice. Calls had slowed as people hunkered down indoors, but the radio crackled now and then with updates about stranded drivers and road closures. He was thinking about his own family waiting at home, about the warmth of a kitchen light and a mug of coffee, when something dark flickered at the edge of the headlights. He slowed instinctively, scanning the roadside where snowdrifts rose like frozen waves. At first he thought it was debris or a shadow from the trees, but then it moved, unsteady and alive. He eased the truck to a stop, hazard lights blinking weakly through the snow. The wind screamed as soon as he cracked the door open, and icy air rushed in like a slap. That was when he saw them clearly, a German shepherd standing rigid in the snow, her coat dusted white, her eyes wide and alert. Pressed close to her legs were two tiny puppies, their bodies trembling so hard it was impossible to tell where fear ended and cold began. They were painfully small against the vastness of the storm, fragile shapes fighting an enemy they could not understand. The officer felt his chest tighten as he took them in. This was not just an animal sighting, this was a family on the edge of disappearing. Training taught him to assess danger quickly, to stay cautious, to avoid sudden movements. But training had never prepared him for the look in that dog's eyes. It was not aggression that held him frozen in place, it was devotion. The mother did not snarl or bare her teeth. She stood her ground, muscles tense, body angled protectively around her pups, watching every breath he took. Snow clung to the puppy's whiskers, and one of them stumbled, too weak to keep its balance. The officer knew the temperature had dropped far below freezing. Another hour, maybe less, and the outcome would be final. He glanced back at the warm glow inside the truck, the heater working overtime to keep him alive. Protocol said animals should be handled by animal control, but there was no animal control coming in a blizzard like this, not in time. The road was nearly impassable, and the nearest shelter was miles away. He weighed the risks quickly, aware of the ticking clock that cold always carries. The decision settled in his gut before his mind could argue. He opened the passenger door wide and stepped back, exposing the warmth inside like an offering. The wind roared louder, and snow blew straight into the cab, but the officer did not flinch. He crouched slightly, keeping his posture low, extending an open hand without reaching. His breath fogged in front of him as he waited. The mother dog did not move at first. She watched him with a stillness that spoke of hard lessons learned on unforgiving streets. Every instinct told her that danger often wore calm disguises. The puppies whimpered softly, their sounds barely audible over the storm, and one pressed its face into her leg as if trying to disappear into her fur. Time stretched painfully. The officer felt the cold creep into his knees and fingers, but he stayed where he was. He thought about how many times he had driven past things like this before, too busy, too focused, assuming someone else would handle it. He realized that if he closed the door now, if he drove away, this moment would follow him for the rest of his life. The storm did not care about excuses. The cold did not wait for better timing. Finally, the mother shifted her weight. She took one cautious step forward, then another, testing the ground, the air, the stranger. Her ears flicked back at a gust of wind, and she glanced down at her pups as if checking that they were still there. The officer did not move. He did not breathe too loudly. He simply waited, heart pounding, hoping that warmth would speak louder than fear. When the first puppy toddled forward, drawn by something it could not name, the officer felt tears sting his eyes. The tiny dog slipped slightly on the icy metal step, and the mother moved instantly, nudging it back, then forward again, guiding it with infinite care. One by one, the puppies climbed awkwardly into the truck, collapsing onto the floor mat in a heap of shaking fur. The mother hesitated only a moment longer, scanning the darkness behind her as if leaving meant abandoning something unseen, then she followed them inside. The moment the door closed, the world changed. The howl of the blizzard dulled, replaced by the hum of the engine and the steady rush of warm air. The puppies stopped trembling quite so violently, their bodies slowly relaxing as heat reached places that had gone numb. The mother stood stiffly at first, still unsure, her eyes never leaving the officer. He backed away, giving her space, and reached for a blanket from the emergency kit, sliding it gently across the floor without looking directly at her. As the truck rolled forward again, tires crunching through snow, the officer felt something loosen inside his chest. He was still on duty, still responsible for the road and the storm and the radio calls, but now there was more. There was a family breathing behind him, alive because he had chosen to open a door. The heater blasted, fogging the windows, and he cracked one slightly to keep the air clear. The puppies burrowed into the blanket, tiny sides rising and falling, and the mother finally sat, exhaustion settling over her like a heavy coat. The drive to the station felt longer than usual, the storm relentless, but the officer did not mind. He checked the rearview mirror often, reassured each time he saw movement, saw life. At the station, the lights glowed like a beacon against the snow. Inside, warmth and quiet replaced the chaos outside. The officer carried the puppies first, cradling them carefully, their small bodies impossibly light, then coaxed the mother in with patience and steady calm. Other officers gathered, drawn by curiosity, then silence, then understanding as they took in the scene. Word spread quickly, not with excitement, but with reverence. Someone found more blankets. Someone else brought water and food. The mother ate cautiously at first, never taking her eyes off her pups, but hunger eventually overcame suspicion. The puppies slept deeply, the kind of sleep that only comes when survival no longer requires constant vigilance. The officer stood back, watching, feeling both pride and humility. He had done something simple, and yet it felt monumental. Arrangements were made despite the storm. A local rescue was contacted, volunteers braving the weather to help. A veterinarian agreed to check the dogs once the roads were safer. In the quiet hours that followed, as the blizzard raged on outside, the officer sat alone at his desk, paperwork forgotten. He thought about how close those lives had come to being lost without anyone ever knowing. He thought about how many others were out there, unseen, unheard, waiting for a door to open. When the rescue volunteers arrived, bundled in coats and gratitude, there was emotion in every movement. The mother dog watched the transfer carefully, but there was no resistance, only a tired acceptance, as if she understood that this too was part of survival. As she was led away with her pups, she paused, turning her head just enough to meet the officer's eyes. It was not a look that could be explained easily. It carried relief, trust, and something like thanks, a silent acknowledgement that crossed species and circumstance. Days later, after the storm had finally loosened its grip, updates began to come in. The puppies were healthy, stronger with each passing hour. The mother, once underweight and worn, began to regain her shine. The rescue shared photos, then stories, then the news that applications were already coming in from families who wanted to give them homes. The officer felt a quiet joy reading those messages, a warmth that had nothing to do with heaters or blankets. One afternoon, on a rare day off, he visited the shelter. The puppies were bigger already, clumsier, tumbling over each other with reckless joy. The mother recognized him immediately, tail wagging cautiously, eyes soft. He knelt there on the clean floor, surrounded by life that had almost been lost, and felt the weight of that night settle into something gentle and lasting. He did not see himself as a hero. He saw himself as someone who had been present when it mattered. Before this story ends, take a moment to leave a comment below. Share what this moment made you feel, or tell us about a time kindness changed your life or someone else's. Your words matter more than you know. As the puppies eventually went to their forever homes and the mother followed not long after, the blizzard became just another memory for the town. Roads reopened, routines resumed, and the world moved on as it always does. But for those who knew, for those who heard the story, something lingered. It was the reminder that compassion does not require perfection or grand plans. Sometimes it requires only the courage to open a door and let warmth spill into the cold. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you of the power of empathy and the impact of a single choice, please like this video, share it with someone you care about,